before we jump into the full review of the Nikon D750, if you haven't signed up for the Front Photo email list, you can do so right now. Just click inside this orange box where it says click here, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I'm going to send you a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations. Jared Poland, FroKnowsPhoto.com, here to test the Nikon D750 in an actual real-world environment. I am at a high school football game because that is the place I want to put this thing through its paces. I want to see how the autofocus works. I want to see how the low light capability is. I don't want to just sit in the studio and do high ISO tests. I want to bring it out here into the field to make it work. And I'll talk to you throughout the game to tell you some of my findings, what I think, what I'm liking, how's the autofocus, are the focus points where they need to be, just all of the pros and the cons of this camera. But what did I do? I went ahead and called borrow lenses and borrowed two big ass pieces of glass. We have the Nikon 400mm 2.8 as well as the Nikon 600mm f4. Two pieces of glass combined for $18,000. That's right, that's a lot of money, but hey, I feel like I have a shortness issue. I need a little bit more reach, a little more extension in the glass area, and that's what I'm gonna get right here with these lenses to shoot these football games. It's gonna be interesting. You know, we've got the flip out screen, we have the autofocus system that's better. I may even try to shoot some video with the big lenses. We'll see what happens, but you know, until then, just follow us along as we get ready to shoot this football game. All right, so I want to give you guys a little insight on how I'm setting up the Nikon D750 right now. Hopefully, no, he was out. That's definitely not a catch. Yeah, I'll call that from the sideline. But so how am I setting up the D750 for shooting a football game? Of course, I've got an unrealistic lens here with the 400 2.8, but it's more about testing out the camera than anything else. So that's why I wanted to put some really good glass on it. I am at, let's see, I'm using the screen back here to see what ISO I'm at. It's a little slower to load sometimes. I'm at ISO 2000, 1/1250th of a second at 3.2. Keep in mind, this is a 400mm lens. I don't want to shoot at 1/400th of a second, and I do have the VR on with this. I'm trying to get a faster shutter speed so that I can freeze the football motion, and then we're going to push the ISO as it gets darker out. I'm also shooting at f3.2. 3.2 is giving me a little bit of leeway, and it's still going to compress the hell out of the background. Focusing mode, I'm using the new group area AF in the continuous focus, and other than that, oh yes, I'm set to shoot continuous high, 6.5 frames a second, shooting raw, well, it's raw compressed in here. I didn't realize that it was compressed raw 14-bit, but it is compressed. Probably won't make too much of a big deal of a difference there. I have two cards here in the camera, two SD slots. Normally I'll write redundancy from one to the other, but I don't want to slow down the camera while I'm testing it out, so I just have it going to one card right there. So right off the bat, this seems to be like a lot of fun with this camera. It's handling pretty well, and we'll be back with more throughout the game. All right, so we know that the Nikon D750 is the first camera to add a pull-out screen like this. Now, they've had ones that articulate and rotate all the way around, but this is the first time they have this one on a camera, well, actually on a full-frame camera. So I'm low on the ground to shoot stills. I'm still trying to figure out what you would actually use this LCD for from such a low, well, what you'd use it for when you're shooting stills. I know for video, it would be pretty cool to sit here, flip the screen out, and sit here with the camera like this in live view and see everything that's happening from such a low angle. That is where it works. For stills, I'm not a big live view shooter, and there's not a lot of pros that are going to shoot that way unless you're holding it above your head, spraying and praying, which in the case, we can do this. We can go like this, we can pull it down, and we can shoot all the way up over our head because this thing rotates out and then pulls down just like this. But low angle, it's pretty good. We could shoot stills like this to get an even lower angle, but I really think that the only thing that this is good for is for when you're shooting video. So as you can see, I'm now using the live view with this screen. I'm holding the camera up. This is a really good option for shooting video. I can see everything right here. I don't have to get so low to the ground because if the screen was just placed right here, I wouldn't be able to get a good angle on it. So that is where this thing is working out really well. I'm also using the feature that they added to this camera for the auto ISO for shooting video. That's great for smooth transitions, and I don't have to set anything else. I'm shooting at 1080 at 60 frames a second, which means that my shutter speed is double that. So instead of the normal 50th of a second, I'm shooting at 1 1/125th of a second because that's double 60 frames right there for the 60 frames a second. The reason we shoot 60 frames a second for sports, we have the option to slow it down to freeze some of that, basically to get better slow motion.
All right, boys, let's go. Good night. Backers on 3, 1, 2, 3. Backers.
Did you see what I did right there? I was able to use the articulating screen, pull it out like this, and hold it up above my head like this. It is nice and stable when I'm holding it right here. Well, it's not the best stability in the world, but it's not bad at all. Having this screen like that for video is awesome. For photos, maybe not so much, but I was able to get up in there as the coach was talking to the players, as the player was getting ready to say, you know, let's have a good game. I'm able to get up in there, get a high angle, because if I'm just shooting straight on like this, well, it's gonna look pretty boring. And then if I tried to hold up like this, I can't see where my focus is. But in this case, I'm able to follow the green box and make sure that the focus is right because I can tilt the screen completely down 90 degrees and hold it up over my head. Pretty awesome. So now the team's gonna run out onto the field, breaking this thing. You see this all the time. Hopefully they've got eyes and they don't run into us, because here they come. This is the interesting part. Here they come.
Flip it in the air. You're going to call it in the air. Mr. Fox is going to call it off the ground now with whatever it is you called, all right? Ready? Hands is called. And leave it to you. The ball. Good luck, man. Have a good one.
So now the game has started and it's awfully dark out. I'm pushing the ISO up to 6400, and also with a 600 f4, I'm losing that stop of light, not having that 2.8. That's why I had to bump it up. Man, football is still one of the hardest things to shoot, especially when you're trying to use long glass and fill the frame top to bottom. It is very hard because you're not sure where anything's gonna happen. But one of the things I'm noticing with the focusing system, it's fast. It does stay up with everything, but I wish that the focus points spread out further. Like with the Nikon D610 and D600, how it's scrunched in the middle a little bit. I feel like they should go out further with the focusing system. I never feel like I have enough focusing points on the outside, so my composition's getting thrown off. So that's just something that I'm figuring out. If you don't have a big ass piece of glass like this and you're trying to get more reach out of your Nikon D750, you have a 1.2 times crop mode as well as a 1.5 times crop mode, putting it into DX. But you don't gain any extra speed out of the camera. Like in some of the other models, you would go from 6 frames a second to 8 frames a second when you go into that DX crop mode. So in essence, I would not go into that mode at all. I would stay in the full frame mode and still take the 6.5 frames a second, and I'm not somebody who likes to crop. But if you really want to get closer, you have the megapixels to go ahead and do that cropping after the fact. I wouldn't worry about the 1.2 crop mode or the 1.5, because if you miss the shot there and you cut off some limbs or something, the photo is useless. If you really need to get closer and you want to do that, you have the extra megapixels here. Just be careful, because as you crop in the computer after the fact, you're going to enlarge any imperfections that are in the file. Here we are with the halftime report. We've been shooting for 2 quarters, switching between the 600 f4, the 400 2.8, the 70 to 200, the 14 to 24 for shooting the football game and for shooting some of the band going on in between. So On the photo side, I'm shooting between 6400 ISO and 8000 ISO. I'm shooting that in that case, obviously, so we can do a nice test with it, but to get myself a fast enough shutter speed to hopefully freeze the motion. I'm around 800th of a second to 1000th of a second. That's where I like to play when I'm trying to get sharp images with what we're shooting. So far, the 8000, woo! So far, the 8000 ISO it looks like on the back of the camera that it's doing very well. It looks solid, it looks sharp, and it doesn't look grainy or noisy at all. But of course, we'll have to see that in the computer to tell whether or not it's really good or not good. The autofocus seems to be pretty fast. I had to retire the 600 so far because that thing is just a beast to try to shoot with. It's a very limiting lens. The 400 2.8 is a much better range out here for shooting football, and I'm gonna throw in some wider angles coming up in the next quarter, the next 2 quarters before the game is over. Now, my overall feel with this is that it's like any other Nikon full frame or even DX camera for that matter. They put them together in such a way that you can pick up the D3200 to the D4S and know where everything is. So just like I have a D810, I have a D610, this feels almost the same in terms of where everything is. I know where the buttons are. It just feels like second nature when you pick up any Nikon camera. But this camera's feeling fine. Battery life is at 60-some%, and that's after doing some videos, shooting almost 300 and some photos that we've done in RAW. In terms of rapid fire shooting, it has chewed up the buffer pretty darn quick. I would shoot 6, 7, 8 pictures in a row, the buffer's done. So if you're looking for it to be a sports camera, when you're shooting RAW, maybe you'll get a little bit more out of it when I'm not shooting JPEG basic just to have those previews, but it's not very rapid fire when it comes to buffer. The D810's buffer was much better. So that's something to keep in mind if you're looking for this to be a sports type camera. You may not want to spray and pray. You may want to pick your spots to get the photos. So we're going to get ready here to shoot the second half and just play around more and see how the camera's working. One last thing, I've been shooting a little bit of video. It's really nice to have this flip out screen. So far, video's looking pretty good on here. Now let's go shoot. So here's something on the Nikon D750 that I wish they had. I wish that these would light up. I wish the buttons would light up like on the D4S. Now the D4S is the only one that does that, but I wish Nikon would do this so that the back buttons will illuminate in the darkness, because sometimes you can't see it, whether you're shooting a concert or it's just extra dark out. It's hard to see what buttons you're trying to push.
1 to 2, Gursky to Wallace, pass complete. Brought down by number 4.
So here's a quick tip for you if you're looking to shoot some football. Look at what hand the quarterback throws with. If he's a left-handed quarterback, then shoot into him, because he's going to be throwing like this, and you want to make sure that when he's throwing, you're trying not to get his back. Also, they play the hash marks. When they get to the closer hash mark, if the longest lens you have is a 200, well, it's going to be better to shoot them at that hash mark than the further hash mark. Just some quick tips like that is just try to follow a player as something's going to happen. Instead of trying to figure it out while the play's happening, you may end up missing it. All right, let's lock this in. There we go. We are locked and loaded, ready to go to shoot video with this monstrosity.
Fumble on the play. Recovered by number 40, Thomas Hewitt. And the Indians take over. 1st and 10 from the 36. McElwain on the keeper. Brought down by number 3, Marcus Saleda. Just short of the first down. 2nd and 1.
So we've come to the end of the football game. It's not a video game, which I almost said. It is a football game where I was testing out the Nikon D750. I ran through a lot of different lenses and scenarios. I even put it on the 400, no, this is a 600mm f4 to shoot video. We shot the video at 1080 at 60 frames a second, 1/125th of a second, because that's twice the frame rate, and we got some very interesting video with it. I think the capabilities of this camera are pretty good for video. It's set up very well for that, especially with the ability to do the auto ISO, which I didn't need to do out here because the lights are pretty consistent. They're consistently bad, honestly. But it handled very well for shooting football. I mean, really, you just set it on this thing, you find out where you're going to shoot, and you're good to go. On the photo side, the ISO shooting at 8,000 ISO seemed very good, at least here. When we get it back home to finish up this video, we will be able to see the sample images that we were able to get. Now, early on, I know that football is one of the hardest things to shoot. The 600's almost impossible to use to shoot. The 400 was really the right length to shoot with out here with this camera. So it handled very well with the autofocus. It handled well with taking 6.5 frames, 7 frames. After that, the buffer was filled. Now that may be a combination of the fact that I'm shooting the 14-bit RAW plus JPEG basic. I'm shooting the basics just to have those because right now Adobe doesn't have the ability to unlock the RAW power just yet. But, you know, battery-wise, I'm going to take a quick look at the battery power just to see where we ended up. Battery is at, I took 488 pictures, 35%, and maybe 10 to 15, about 10 minutes of video is what I would say. So the battery lasted a really good amount of time out here. Batteries are inexpensive, definitely pick up an extra couple of them. The screen that flips out, useless for shooting photos unless you're gonna do live photos above your head, which I really rarely do, but for video, it worked very well. You saw me lift it above the huddle to get the teams talking. That worked out very well, or during the coin flip, that worked out well as well. That's a lot of as wells. Some things I didn't like, it takes a while to get from pushing the live view button to actually accessing the back of the camera to being able to shoot. That is something that I didn't realize would take so long to do. Ergonomically, feels fine in the hands. It's another Nikon. All the buttons are basically the same in the FX cameras all the way up. Honestly, down to the D700 and all the way up to a D4S, the buttons are pretty much the same. And honestly, guys, I stayed in manual the whole time. So all of these dials, the U1s, the U2s, all of that stuff really doesn't play a case. So all the bells and whistles, it's about getting out there and shooting. The autofocus did well, tracking, and really, we'll have to see what the results look like. So we're going to throw it back into the studio where we can look at the results and see the final ideas for what I think about this Nikon D750 for shooting in the situation that we just used it. The video that you're about to see is filmed with the Nikon D750 shot at 1080 at 24 frames a second. So here we are back in the loft. I've had a chance to go ahead and edit and analyze the Nikon D750 files that I took out at the football game. Now, before we go any further, I want to remind you that you can download the full res images as well as a couple of the DNG, aka the RAW files. Now, in order for me to edit the RAW files in Lightroom, I had to get a beta candidate from Adobe Photoshop, export the NEF files to DNGs, and then go ahead and open them in Adobe Lightroom. So that's what I went ahead and did so you could see the full res shots. I've made a bunch of notes here for things that I want to make sure that I hit about this camera. So thoughts on quality. You have to remember that we were shooting in an extremely low light situation in a real world situation of a football game at high school. People were saying, oh, the lights look great. There were only 4 lights. There's only 4 banks of lights around that stadium, and I think there needed to be 2 extra, 1 on each side, because those are the same lights that have been there since I was in high school in 1999. So they're not the best, but this camera handled very, very well in the low light situations. That -3 EV for focusing really came in handy. I didn't have any trouble finding focus. Now, yes, I was using a 400 2.8 and a 600 f4 that I borrowed from Borrow Lenses, but you have to remember, when you're shooting with a full frame camera, you have officially graduated into something that is much higher quality than DX. You want to make sure you put quality glass on there. You want those 2.8s, those 1.4, those 1.8s. Keep in mind, you may not want to use a kit lens because you may not get the best quality out of it if that is what you're doing when it comes to shooting with the full frame. What ISOs was I at? 6400 for most of the game, 8000 for part of it, and when I zoomed in 1:1 on the computer, yes, you see what is there. You see some noise at 6400, but when you notice that it's a little square that you're zoomed into and the whole frame is this big and you're cropping in this far, that's perfectly acceptable. I think the quality of the camera is really, really solid at 6400 and even at 8000. I don't think you're going to see much of a difference at 10,000 either. So the camera really has a nice range for ISO. AF speed and accuracy had no issues whatsoever with the autofocus. It tracked very well. I used the group area AF or single focus when a player was on the sideline, say on their knees talking to the coach. I would lock in on them so that they would be locked in focus and I wouldn't miss, and bam, I got the shot. What else do I have to say about accuracy? So the AF points, remember in the Nikon D610, you have those 39 points squeezed into the middle more? I kind of felt like the Nikon D750 still squeezed in the points. Yes, there's 51, but I don't think that they spread out far enough into the frame. There has to be a reason that they aren't stretching out far enough into the frame. Now, when you shoot DX, it almost covers the entire viewfinder. I just feel like it was crunching them in the middle. So when I was shooting vertical, I was leaving way too much headroom because the top of my last focusing point didn't go far enough up to get the composition that I liked. I hope that's something they change in future models. Is it a deal breaker here? Absolutely not. It's just something you have to get used to. The screen flipping out. Well, for still photos, like I said during the review, it's not really useful for still photos unless you're holding it over your head to shoot with live view. But for video, it was fantastic to have the pull-out screen. You may not think that it's that big of a deal until you're sitting there scrunching down, looking at the back, and you go, wait, I don't have to do that anymore. I can pull it out and angle it and just stay in a comfortable position. So you saw me hold it up above the players or into the coin flip. It worked out very well for that. Shooting at 1080 at 60 frames a second, it worked out very well having that functionality. What else do we have here? Video-only menu. I was just looking at the D810 before making this final video. That doesn't have a menu dedicated to just video. This D750 has its very own menu just for video, and it also has its own picture control style setting. So you can have one picture style control for stills and one picture style control for video. That definitely comes in handy. Battery life, perfectly fine. I talked about not skimping out on good glass. Don't skimp out on good glass when you buy a full frame camera. Analyze imaging, we did that. Yes, you can see grain, not a big deal. So look, the quality of the images in that low light situation are fantastic. I am very, very happy with the results. And the few images that I took at 2500 ISO before the sun went down were solid as can be on the computer. Nice and thick, nice and contrasty, straight out of the camera. And yes, every picture that you saw in the video was edited. I like to show the final edited results, which you can download those files, but you can also look at the DNG RAW files and strip away everything to see how they came out of the camera. The video features, very happy with the video features in this camera. It's a solid option for shooting video. The 1080 at 60, the flip out screen, the battery life. People want to know about the lightness of this camera. It is lighter, but I didn't have a problem shooting with it. It just felt at home. It felt natural when I was shooting with it. So being that it's one of the smallest and lightest Nikons that they've made in a full frame camera, I was very, very happy with the feel. Yes, that top screen is smaller, but some of the new things that they added to the menu in the back, when you hit the info button or you hold down the ISO and then you have a split screen on the back of the camera so you can see the changes that you're about to make, that was great. I almost didn't need to have buttons on the outside because all the buttons are right there on the back, and then it pulls up the menu in the camera pretty quickly, which is great. I was really happy with those results. What else do I have to say? Oh, compared to the D610, I'm going to do an entire video on the D610, D750 versus the D810, trying to figure out what you should pick. Right now, as of making this video, there's a $500 difference between the Nikon D610 and the D750. I would spend the extra money for the extra features that I get out of this 750. The manual controls for shooting video, that you can change the ISO, you can change the aperture while in live view, that to me is a bonus and saves you a lot of time and effort when you're making changes. You have better subtle tweaks for video with the different lighting, temperatures, and tones that you can shift. The D610 is a steal at $1,800 if you're just getting into the game and want to take that $500 and spend more money on something else. But if you have a few extra bucks to spend, this D750 is a major refinement over that D610, and the tweaks and changes that it makes are well worth it. So I'm very, very happy with the results from this camera. I can highly recommend it if you're in the market for a full-frame DSLR on the Nikon side, or in general looking for a great camera. This is going to give you great photos and great video in a professional sense. I could see taking this camera out there and using it and not worrying about taking the D4S at this point or taking the D810. It's that capable of a camera. So definitely very, very happy with the results. So we're gonna wrap it up right there, but before I do that, if you're looking to see how I capture images the way that I do, how I learned to do that, how I got out of auto and how I shoot in manual, be sure to check out the Frame Photo Beginner Guide to getting out of auto. You can see it up here on the screen right now. You can get a free preview of that by clicking on the screen. It's gonna take you over to that, and that is definitely gonna help you with your photography. So thank you for watching. Thank you to Borrow Lenses for letting me borrow those lenses, and that is all I have to say about that. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya. So here's just an interesting quick tip. What was the quick tip? So here's a quick tip for you guys who haven't shot football before. If you're, so here's a, what the hell is that? So here's something on the, not, Look at you. You are just you're like a goddess of lenses. If I could marry you, I would consider it. So the Nikon D750. No, I got this. So the I'm in the drum major. I'm in the drum line. I want to have a flag. Oh yeah. I'm a flag person. Look at me. I'm dancing. I'm in the band. Are you in the band? I'm with the band. That's right. All right, Sam, bring me the Canon. Let's go. Bring that thing in here for some video. Thanks. Big crowd tonight. 12.